Hi everybody, Colin Stevenson here. Thank you again for joining me. And I am joined with my usual favourite person, John Lenhart, my hero. Hi John.
Hi.
Today we are going to be talking about perceiver why. Every week we are going to talk about an intangible driver, which again comes down to our uniqueness and who we are. Okay, not personality tests, but who we are. So today, perceiver why, John is going to give us some information on that. Take it away, John.
So a perceiver why, remember the why is the effect they want to have on other people. The how is what they do.
Yep.
So perceiver why is somebody who wants others to be aware. They want others to see what they're seeing. If others don't see what they're seeing, they don't feel connected. So what happens, I like to say, is a perceiver can walk into a room and instantly see 3 to 5 things that are wrong in the room. And they will state it. Now they think everybody else can see the same 3 or 5 things. But they are perceivers. They see stuff at a high level that we don't see. So what they do is they'll say, hey, that picture's crooked. And they'll look at you. And then that's where all the good or bad stuff happens. Because here's the thing, a perceiver is only looking for you to say, I see that. That's it. So when I go into the schools, one of the first ways that we help these teachers is we like to say, the first half of the school year, 80% of your issues are going to be with perceiver students.
Yep.
A perceiver will not hear anything you say until you say, I see that, and they won't feel connected. So again, this gets back to, we were talking about this EQ last week, and perceivers on the other end from exhorters. Exhorters care about the feeling, they don't care about the facts. Perceivers care about the facts, they don't care about the feelings. So what we say to the teachers is they'll say, what's example perceiver? And I love to go, okay, I'm the student, you're the teacher. And I say, hey, that student isn't paying attention. And I look at the teachers and I go, what do you say? And the teachers go, I say, worry about yourself. And I say, how does that go? They go, oh, it goes terrible. And I say, well, here's the issue. A perceiver has like a laser beam, and they're putting a laser beam on this other student, and they're going, do you see that? All you have to do is say, I see that. And they'll stop. And the teachers go, no, they won't. I go, well, here's the problem. The minute you don't say, I see that, but you start saying, worry about yourself, they put the beam on you. And now they perceive on you. Now they go, wait a minute. You're a teacher, and you don't care that that kid's not learning. You get paid to help that kid teach, and you don't care. You are stealing from the school. And they'll start ramping up. And what happens? The teacher sends them to the principal. The kid wants to go to the principal. Why? Because I want the principal to see there's a teacher stealing from them. I definitely go to this. All you had to do is say, I see that. We tell this to teachers. They say, nope, nope. And then they do it, and the kid just stops. And they go. And 2 things happen. One is, first of all, they're in absolute shock. But second of all, they start feeling really, really bad. Most of these teachers are compassionate, especially in middle school and elementary school. And what these teachers suddenly go is, uh-oh, I've had students like that student in the past, and I would try to teach them. Well, that's because, or I'd try to do something else, and it ramped them up. So are you saying the reason that kid ramped up was because of me? And someone showed me this Maya Angelou quote that said, you didn't know better. Now that you know, you can do better. And that's the only way to help these teachers, because that's what's hard about having the truth. In our last video, we talked about dissolve. We talked about vitamin C. You dissolve. The kid goes, that kid's not paying attention. I see that. Did you have to talk about the other kid?
Nope.
Did you have to argue? It's gone, dissolved. That is the power, and that's where people don't understand. No, the kid's a robot, and I need to, okay. But when the kid freaks out more, if you try to be logical with the kid freaks out more, whose fault is that? It's the kid's fault. He's got a mental issue. Let's get him out of the class.
No, it's the teacher's fault for not understanding.
Perceivers are the easiest people to get along with, and they're the easiest people to start a fight with.
And I just want to touch on this. Something very close to me. Every time we're in the car, we drive past a field, and it's look at all those cows, look at all those horses, look at all those sheep. Now, I've seen them, and driving around, obviously, you're aware in the car because you've got to be aware of as much as your 360 as possible. And it got to the point where it was always saying, oh yeah, I saw it, yeah, see it. And it was fine, and it all wasn't true. But now, because I understand what a perceiver is, I will say perceiver, right? I understand, understand why you're saying it. That says to me, and we always get a laugh about it, because I'm close, we understand how I work and how I see things. And it's now, I don't even need to say, oh, that's great, or yeah, I understand. I just say perceiver, and they know that I know that they know it's awesome.
So I'm married to a perceiver. Okay, I'm married to a perceiver. Why? And I have kind of the same story, is that when she points something out, she might say, the salad bar isn't open. And what I do is I repeat what she said, but I put this funny inflection in. So I go, the salad bar isn't open. And she laughs. And to your point, she feels connected. It's on 2 levels. One, not only did I say I see that, I'm also saying I know who you are.
Yeah.
I like who you are. I'm going to have fun with who you are. And like you said, you get a laugh. Now this brings up one of my favorite people to talk about, and we've never talked about him, okay? But this is like the key to all of this is perceivers are awesome.
Yeah.
They're the first step. They make us aware. The problem is they think they're negative. They think they're pessimistic, because when they point something out, people don't go, I see that. People go, why do you have to always point out a problem?
Yeah.
Why are you so negative? So everybody is wrecking the people that would help us with the first step. That's what's happening. So every person who says to a perceiver, you're negative, you're pessimistic, not thank you for pointing that out, thank you for making me aware. Everybody who does that is hurting people. 2 weeks ago, one of the biggest influencers on LinkedIn put up a 5-slide, post saying, here's how to stop being perceived as negative by other people and pessimistic. Gary V wanted to help everybody in the world stop being perceived as pessimistic. And everything he did in there was what damages 1/7 of the population, what damages perceivers. And I wrote on that post, there's some people are perceivers, and here's what you need to do. And
nothing.
There's no comments below it, no comments, nothing. And it's like that right there is the heart of it. Your story and my story is perceivers are awesome. In fact, they are the funniest people in the world.
Yep.
Every comedian is a perceiver. In private, they get seen as negative, but every comedian is a perceiver. Why? And Gary Vee and these people are telling them, just like everybody else in the world is, you're negative, you're pessimistic. You and I know how to relate to them in their uniqueness, and we get the benefit out of them.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this, is we are not, because we think people are robots, that if they perceive they're negative and pessimistic, stop it and work opposite. If you tell a perceiver to work opposite of that, it's going to come out in a really, really bad way.
Yeah. Now, my mother is a bit of a perceiver. So growing up, I used to think it was a negative thing. Your hair's not sitting right. Your clothes aren't sitting. You're handsome. Why do you wear that? These type of things. And it wasn't to try and put me down. It was because she saw more than what I saw. And again, this is another part of a perceiver that I like. It's they can see more. So they can see what the room looks like if the picture wasn't squint. They can see you if you wore your hair the way that suited your face shape. So these people are almost visionary as well as, and it's like they can see beyond what they've got in front of them. Now, like if I were looking at somebody for a job, would be like a clerk of works. You know, somebody that's going around and checking a building site, checking new build houses for, you know, the snagging list, for the list of, okay, that's not sitting right, this needs fixed, it's perfect. They would gain energy from that, from being able to point out things that can be improved. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think quality engineers are perceivers. I think lawyers are also perceivers.
Yeah, quality engineers, the same job, yeah. Different terminology from countries.
Right. So the thing is that what I do when I go to a company, I'm always looking for the perceiver in the company. And then what I tell the head person in the company is I say, you see this person over here, the perceiver? I would say it this way. You said visionary. I'd say opportunity.
Yep.
I'd say every time this person talks, they're giving you an opportunity for improvement. They're writing a blank check and handing it to you. And when you don't say, I see that, you're ripping it up. So perceivers see opportunity. The first step is to be aware. Denial it blocks it. They should be celebrated. We should value them. They're awesome. And then we got Gary Vee and other people going, nope, you're right. They're pessimistic. You perceivers need to stop being your unique self and be someone else. And I'll tell you, one of the issues with this is interesting is that every person with autism is a perceiver.
Yes.
And so here's an interesting fact. We have cured people who were diagnosed autistic. So this person's diagnosed autistic, and now they're no longer diagnosed autistic. So now, were they autistic and we cured them, or were they misdiagnosed? Well, I will tell you what my belief is they were misdiagnosed. Because what happens is when people listen to Gary Vee and other people's advice about perceiver, these people experience damage. And when perceivers experience damage, they are not going to share anything. Yep. And they're going to avoid contact. They're going to avoid looking people in the eye. They're going to avoid it. And they're just going to make one sentence statements to distract. When you start telling this perceiver who has damage, who gets diagnosed autistic, I see that. I see that. They start perceiving, I see that. And now all of a sudden, guess what? They're having conversations.
Yep, they open up.
They open up. So one of the things to realize is, are we, like we said in the last video, we're getting really good at fresh meat and citrus. We're getting really good at knowing the physical cause. Let's make everybody that way. So when we make everybody not pessimistic, 1/7 of people we're going to damage, then we're going to categorize them in autism.
I love that. Oh, right.
That's how we're wrecking mental health, is we are creating these people. Now, there are autistic people, don't get me wrong, okay? But there are a bunch of people diagnosed autistic that it's when we help them, and I'll tell you, anybody who thinks, who knows someone's autistic, walk up and say, I see that when they talk. And if you start seeing them lock eyes with you and looking in the eye and start opening up, that's a perceiver who got misdiagnosed, basically. So that's the issue. And that's why it's important to understand what a perceiver is and how this is a wonderful thing, but we take it and make it a horrible thing.
Now, while we're touching on this subject, that sparked a lot in me because, as you quite rightly said, there are people with autism and it can become very severe in terms of how they have it. Now, for a person, they say, oh, they've got mild autism. This is a new thing, mild autism. Now, for me, autism is autism regardless of what it is, okay? Neither here nor there. The people are the people. They're unique, still unique human beings. We're all different from each other anyway, okay? But when you hear this mild autism, mild Asperger's, it's because these people, or they don't make eye contact, they're being damaged from a young age, or they didn't get found out until they were 12. Yes, because they were damaged from their young age to not being able to express themselves. And this is what happens. They get through and they close themselves off more and more, which stops them from being free.
Right, and they make an adjustment. That's the issue. Is because of the contextual thing we said in the last show, is that they're getting pushed out of their unique context. So then they make a change to adjust to their context, which damages them more. And so now this process of helping most of the people and damaging less of the people, they're really the ones responsible for doing that, damaging them, because they did the initiating cause of denying uniqueness. Then the person flipped their uniqueness, and that's where they can get complicated. Is this person have autism? Is this person moved this way? Was this person responding to how they've been treated? And then we can undo it. So that's the thing, is it's always fun to let these parents know, if your kid's a perceiver, say, I see that. I've had, and Jonathan will tell you this, he has examples of parents arguing with their kid. And all of a sudden, like if the parent is arguing with the kid, the parent is arguing with the kid, the other parent steps in between. So he's looking at the spouse and the kid's behind him, and he goes, and then the parent will go, I see that. And the kid will go, okay, thanks, and walk away. And you look like that's all it took. And, we have an example. We have a testimony of a teacher who had a student who was a perceiver, and he just constantly, this. So the teacher that dissolved this, he asked the kid to let him know when the buses show up. He asked the kid to perceive. And teachers go, then he perceived more. And the teacher, that he's talking to, the teacher says, he perceived less. See, that's the thing about dissolve, and the opposite is if you ask a perceiver to perceive, they feel connected and they don't need to perceive. They don't want to perceive. Yeah. They want to be connected. They have an intangible cause, the need to feel connected. How they go about it is by perceiving. If you block their ability or don't recognize your ability to perceive, you're blocking their ability to connect. And now they're going to act out in order to connect more. So it's really going back to that intangible cause.
Yeah. Now, I didn't know what a perceiver was until a year ago. So that I can actually think about times where people have been saying things to me and I was damaging towards them. Now, that doesn't make me feel nice. I'm going to be honest. It doesn't make me feel nice. And what you talked about earlier about the teacher and feeling bad, and especially because I'm compassion, I want to take on everyone's pain. And the thought of causing people pain really upsets me, the thought that I've done it. Now, I know that, as you say, 1/7 of people are perceivers, and I've met a lot of them in my life. And I have probably taken these people at face value because I didn't know, because I wasn't educated or informed, because that's the system, right? I did not take these people for who they were. I took it how that made me feel. Were they trying to put me down? Were they trying to rubbish what I had? I didn't for one time turn around and say, thank you for telling me that, because all they were doing, thank you for being you, is what I should have said, and now moving forward, it's a totally different ballgame.
Especially on LinkedIn, because we said this before COVID, LinkedIn was half exhorter why, half compassion why. Let's be nice to everybody, let's make $1 billion. COVID happened, the compassion people were feeling all this pain, and the exhorters were like, this is not the right time to say make $1 billion. So what happened was on LinkedIn, all these religious people showed up, end of the world, and all these perceivers. Are you aware? Are you aware? There's this, conspiracy theories and perceiver. And it was interesting dealing with them because I think they can be very funny. Like I said, they're comedians. And if you interact with them the right way, you can have good exchanges. There were not a lot of people having good exchanges during COVID, when it first initially happened, because there were all these perceivers. So the thing to realize is every comedian is a perceiver. They're a perceiver why, and they want you to be aware, and they get energy. Everybody can learn to be funny, but how you're funny is really what kind of perceiver. So we talk about the how. So what I want to do is I want to go through these comedians real quick for people to see what it would look like to be a different comedian, because really they're all comedians. They're all about doing the perceiver why. And Jerry Seinfeld has this show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. And he brings these comedians on. And when you watch them, they give themselves away in all of these. So the first one would be perceiver, which is, I am going to point things out in order for you to be aware, okay? Ricky Gervais has been on his show twice. Ricky Gervais is a classic perceiver. He doesn't care how you feel. And he has stated that so many times. He don't care how you feel. One of my favorite comedians growing up was Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Steve Martin, when he's on Jerry's show, it starts off, he walks out, he goes, look at your shoes, look at that car. He can't help but do that. He's a very philosophical and poetic guy. So it's perceiver, okay? Perceiver teacher, Chris Rock.
Yeah.
So these people, and in my time, it was George Carlin or Robert Klein. These guys have to explain, they have to teach you something for you to get the joke. These guys who teach you, like if you go to see a comedian and you end up walking away learning, like if you go to Chris Rock, Robert Klein, George Carlin, you walk away going, I didn't know that about, like they're teaching, what they're doing is teaching in order for you to be aware of this one-liner. Okay, so that's those teachers. Compassion, perceiver compassion. Richard Pryor was perceiver compassion. Larry David is perceiver compassion. What they do is they will share. We'll talk about compassion hows someday. Your compassion why. Compassion how. Man, those two guys will share the most embarrassing stuff about themselves. It's incredible. That's one of the things people look at and go, how did Richard Pryor do what he did? Or how does Larry David do it? They will share the most embarrassing things about themselves to make you aware. They will bear all this pain, okay? Perceiver giver is really interesting because there aren't very many of them. And the classic one was Bob Newhart, who growing up was one of my favorite. Bob Newhart used to always do a routine on the phone. And you only heard one side of it. You had to imply what was going on.
Yeah.
But Bob Newhart was always this giver. What he did was he'd give. He showed you how to do something better. He was showing you, well, maybe every one of his routines was, why don't you try this? Why don't you do this? So it was a perceiver giver, okay? Perceiver server is Jerry Seinfeld. And in fact, there's a great episode where he's interviewing Michael Richards. It goes really long because in the middle of the episode, he starts counseling Michael Richards. He moves his server how to compassion really, and he starts helping them through this situation. So, and that's why Jerry is such a good host of that show is his how goes all over the place. Okay. Yeah. So then Jim from The Office, it's hard to find like this administrator perceiver, but Jim from The Office, basically what he does is he's a practical joker. So anybody who's a practical joke, anybody who does these practical jokes, they administrate, they move all these things around so that, hey, did you see that? You know, Jim in The Office always, moves everything around. And then when someone gets pranked, he goes, and it's the classic, why is he always looking at the camera? Did you see it? I moved this around here for you. So Jim would be not a fun friend to have, because he would prank you so other people be aware. Hopefully you tell him, prank everybody else so I'm aware. I'll be aware of it, okay? And then this perceiver exhorter, they come off really sarcastic. Louis C.K. was like that. He's perceiver exhorter. Everything's big, everything's wild like that. Now, here's the thing. What's interesting about this is, and we'll talk about this another time, but compassion perceiver, I've said to you, when you are a compassion perceiver, you have these one-liners. It's very poetic, and a lot of great songwriters and poets were compassion perceiver. Comedians are perceiver compassion. There's two guys that are, you could say, in the wrong field. Okay, John Mayer is perceiver compassion. He has the uniqueness of a comedian, but he's a singer. Dave Chappelle is compassion perceiver. He's got the uniqueness of a musician. He's a comedian. They know each other. They like each other. They both try to do the other thing. And they're constantly drawn to it because their uniqueness is there. Now, does it mean they can't do what they're doing? They can, but here's the issue. They have to adjust their process. John Mayer, if you ever watch a show, The Hot Ones, where he gets interviewed, it's a classic compassion perceiver situation. But he's perceiver compassion. What happens is he can be the nicest guy in the world. He says, talking to these women, okay? Oh, and he does the compassion how thing. But the thing is, he loves these complicated songs. He loves playing complicated songs, and no one buys them. All of his hits are compassion perceiver. They're the opposite of his uniqueness. They're very simple, very poetic, very straightforward. He hates them. But that's what sells. If you're going to sell, you got to be a compassion perceiver, an exhorter perceiver to sell music. He moves to that to sell it, but he doesn't like it. He likes these songs, and he says in his concerts, he's got to play a song everybody likes so he can play a song he likes. Dave Chappelle is a classic. Dave Chappelle doesn't know what's funny. He himself doesn't know what's funny. And he said that in interviews. So how does a perceiver compassion be one of the funniest guys ever, really? Compassion, doing the, how does a compassion perceiver do a perceiver compassion? And if you know the story of Dave Chappelle, what he does is he will go to a comedy club after it closes. So comedy club closes at 2. He will go on. He will talk for 4 hours about whatever, stuff he's planned, stuff, whatever, with a crowd that didn't pay anything. There's the compassion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to charge you guys for stuff. This might all be crap. So there's that compassion come out. And what happens is he tries stuff, and if people laugh, then he goes, that's funny. His process is grueling. Other comedians do not have to have his process because they intrinsically know what's funny and mean. He's not that guy. And if you saw the Kennedy Honors, it's amazing because his mom spoke to him about, his mom understood his purpose. His mom spoke right. When you talk about helping somebody find their purpose, his mom knew his purpose. His mom spoke right in his purpose. And the purpose was, being a lion, being a lamb, that's the struggle with that compassion perceiver. That perceiver is fierce, and that compassion is gentle. And she understood it, gave him this great advice. He took it, and here he is. I wouldn't say at the end of his career. I think he's done amazing things. He still does amazing things. But if you look at why he's a comedian, it is not to be funny.
No.
It is not. Okay.
Just while you were,
pain. It is completely to bear pain.
It's to take it all in. But while people are releasing their pain, it makes them happy at the same time. That allows them to laugh. So again, it's allowing this to he's taking away to offer, whereas other people are offering so that they forget type thing. And all they're thinking about is that. Now, while you were talking about all these different types of comedians, I started thinking about myself, right? I know that probably sounds a bit big-headed, but not because I was listening to everything you said, but every time you spoke about a different person, the first person I watched, Ricky Gervais, I think the guy's hilarious. I love how abrupt and cheeky and doesn't give 2 hoots as to what people think. I love it, right? I love it. Some of the stuff he says is quite cutting, but again, it doesn't bother me because I can relate, if that makes sense. But depending on whose company I'm in will depend on the jokes that I make. Now, that again goes back to my server, okay? So yes, I am compassion, but I will feel how people are. I will feel their mood, their whatever's going on before I then serve them with a joke, if that makes sense, because I will pick, this will be funny for them, but not for them, so I won't do it. And it's not me not being unique to me. By me doing that, I'm still being unique to myself because I'm understanding the 2 people. So again, I'm still feeling that I'm being me, but sometimes when you get 2 people that you know that are going to appreciate a joke, and it might be quite cutting, I can then come out and do it, and I can be a bit of a comedian myself, but it has to be the right time. It's not my main purpose.
Right, but you're being unique to yourself. So that's how a compassion, and you go compassion perceiver to tell a joke, that's how you tell a joke, okay? Now, and this you set up my last point perfectly. Perceivers can't not see it. And perceivers are frustrated that anyone can't help it. That's Ricky Gervais's main issue, is why can't anybody handle this? And Steve Harvey on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld, he said it perfectly. He looks at Jerry and he goes, we have this third eye. And he's talking about comedians, and he's really talking about perceivers.
Yeah.
We have this third eye that when something happens, and I would say wrong in the world, when something happens in the world, he goes, we instantly have the joke. So if you're wondering if you're a perceiver or not, if you're wondering if someone's a perceiver, when something bad happens, if you instantly have the joke, you're a perceiver. And then he says this, which is really self-aware. Steve Harvey goes, but we have to wait for the rest of the world to be able to handle it. Yeah. So that's the thing, is when I deal with perceivers, one of the first executive coaching things I ever did, this firm couldn't help this one guy. I walked in one meeting, 45 minutes later, the guy was crying. Third session, he was a different person. because when I gave him the test, he was perceiver. And I started explaining to him, and that was one of the things I said. I said, I bet you instantly see the joke. You instantly see what's wrong. You instantly see what's funny. And you probably only have a really small group of people you can be really yourself with and say whatever you want. And all these other people, you always have to worry. And sometimes you say it and it's funny, and sometimes you say it and everybody hates you. And slowly you're retreating into this small group of people. And I guarantee you this group of people are all perceivers. And he just started crying. And it's like, that's the thing, is these comedians, they can't be their uniqueness all the time because, 6/7 of the population can't handle it. You are aware that you're not trying to be funny to make people aware, you're being funny compassion. And I'd say Chappelle is the same way. Chappelle's not trying to be funny to be funny. He's trying to bear pain. He's trying to help people grow, and he uses comedy. That's what he's actually doing. And so, that's the issue, is comedians, they have to mute themselves and hold it in, and that's what's really damaging them in the long term.
Yeah, and this also makes sense for, again, I know that we're coming to the end of our time, but children, when they can't not see it, they have to express it. And when they're not seen, that's where the damage is coming in. I'm really going to push this video on my different social media handles as well. I love them all, but I believe that when we talked about the autism, it's quite close to my heart as well, because I do believe that children are maybe not, and if they are being diagnosed with something that's possibly going to hold them back rather than just being recognised for who they are, I generally believe that this can be something that can be brought up. So I'm going to definitely push it even further if I can, and share it to a few people. But again, thank you so much for today, John. Again, I've learned more, and I love talking about the comedians and everything. You and I could talk probably for about 6 weeks ongoing without any sleep. But next week we'll have another few subjects for people, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Take care. Bye.